How's it going, everybody? I'm Russell Lewis, and welcome back to Rush TV. Just knocked out another probably legendary interview with a legend, Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant Kaleth Wright. We talked about everything from racial discrimination to finding a balance within life with your family, and also we talked about life and leadership and how important it is to find peace and balance within both of those. Definitely not an interview you want to miss. Check it out. I am a captain in the United States Air Force. I am an air battle manager, and I created a platform where civilian and military members can connect with the next generation of leaders. I understand the importance of mentorship because it changed my life. And I want to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity. So without further ado, welcome to Mentorship Moments. So welcome back, everybody. I'm Russell Lewis, and I got the man, the myth, the legend, number 18, the Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force. I will call this man a mentor. He doesn't know he's my mentor, but he's my mentor. Chief Master Sergeant Kaleth Wright. What's going on, sir?
Hey, what's going on, boss? It's good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Man, stop it. First of all, stop it. I'm so excited about this interview, man. We have had certain discussions that I feel have impacted me for sure, and definitely a new generation of leaders who are going to lead this United States Air Force. But before we get into all that, Chief, happy birthday, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I turned 50 yesterday. That's exciting, man. I feel good. I feel 40.
So I don't know what 40 feels like, but one day we might have to, tag up one day. I'm like, hey, now I see what you mean.
Hey, you'll get there, and you'll know what it feels like when you get there.
No, for sure, Chief. So first and foremost, man, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking time out of your day and for everything you have done. We're going to have a very good conversation. What I want to start with is you are the top enlisted member in the United States Air Force. When you found out that you were going to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, how did that feel?
To be perfectly honest, it felt right on time because initially, I'll just tell you initially what happened. Initially, when I got selected, my first thought, to be perfectly honest, was so I'm going to be the token black guy on the slate. And I went through that and I wasn't necessarily happy. I wasn't excited because, I've been around, man. I've seen this before. You put, just for diversity's sake, you put somebody on the slate with no intention of selecting them and whatnot. And I thought to myself, man, I don't feel like going through all this just to, to play this game. But then after about, it was probably 4 or 5 days, I said, you know what? You put me in the game, coach, I'm shooting. And so I just decided that, okay, if my name is on this slate, I'm going to be, excuse my French, the motherfucking Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And so once I developed that mindset, I prepared. I went through the interview process. I came here to D.C. and interviewed with my boss, me and my wife, Tanya, did. And so when he called me, actually, when I walked out of the interview, I said, that's it, man. Game over. And so when he called me and told me that he had selected me, it just felt like, okay, right on time. Now it's time to get to work. Of course, there was some excitement, but I didn't feel overwhelmed. I didn't feel like, oh my God, what's about to happen? I felt like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Talk to me about that process. Like after you found out that you were going to be selected as a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, how did you process all that? Because that is a huge title with a huge weight associated with that.
I just felt like, this is exactly where I was supposed to be at this point in my life. And I immediately started just thinking, okay, you asked for it. You allowed your name to be put in that hat. You got it. Now you gotta get busy. There ain't a lot of time for, and of course there was time for, we celebrated and had parties and drank and smoked cigars and we all that type of stuff. But my mindset really was, man, how am I going to help General Goldfein move the Air Force forward? And so I immediately started thinking about, okay, what issues do I want to tackle? And that wasn't that hard because I was already a MAJCOM command chief and I was already a part of the enlisted leadership team that was working all the issues anyway. So, and then I started reaching out to my friends and mentors and the folks that I knew I was going to be serving with, to include my boss with, hey, here's some thoughts that I'm having about what direction I want to take the enlisted force. I got a lot of feedback. I got a lot of, people saying, hey, that sounds good. Maybe you want to adjust this or adjust that. And so by the time I hit day one, when me and Chief Cody did the transition, man, I was ready to go. Now, of course, everything didn't go perfect, but the process for me mentally, it just felt like, I had prepared for it all my life, and so I was ready to rock and roll. I didn't have any, and it sounds, I don't know, it sounds funny or whatever, but I didn't have any reservations. I didn't have any doubts about my ability to do the job. I was just ready, man.
So now that we have the first ever African American Chief of Staff with General Brown, and now we have the first female Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force with Chief Master Sergeant Joanne Bass, how does that make you feel, Chief?
Long overdue. Right? It's a mix of rejoicing. They are the most talented officer and enlisted person that we have in our Air Force at this point. So there's a bit of rejoicing, and then there's a bit of, it's about goddamn time, right? It's just taking too long for us. And I've known some great Black general officers that I thought could have done the job, and I've known some great female chiefs that I thought could have done the job. So I think it's a huge step for not just the Air Force, but for the department as a whole. I just felt like, hey man, it's about time. And what I worry a little bit about with both of them, right? Because anytime, Russ, you probably know this, anytime you're the first anything, there's always this pressure. So I was the second, right? So Chief Tom Barnes was, yeah. So y'all got the pressure, man. I was a second, Black Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, and to be honest, I didn't feel, maybe I shouldn't have, but I didn't feel any pressure at all to, for the community, for the race, or anything. But him being the first, and her being the first, for him being the first Black and her being the first female senior enlisted advisor, sometimes people have a tendency to put undue pressure on themselves, and then we as a community of females or Black people end up putting all this unnecessary pressure on them to kind of like, hey man, you can't mess it up for all of us like the Alphas did,
That was perfect. That was a perfect transition, right? But I'm not even gonna get baited into it. Not even gonna go there. So
and oh, by the way, I know General Brown is an Alpha.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's too easy. But all right, let me get it back together. So
oh man.
All right.
Greek love, man. It's all love.
Man. It's all love. I'm gonna have to put this in the outtakes or something. So Chief, I know we talked a little bit about 2020 has been a very interesting year. It really has, man. It's been a lot of ups and downs. We've been through pandemics, riots, very difficult conversations, racial discriminations, police injustices, so on and so forth. But I got to give you and General Goldfein credit, man. You all, from a leadership perspective, from me, how I see you all, you're like the perfect team. The perfect team. The way that he had your back and the way that you have had his back over the years, it's been amazing to watch, right? I met you as a second lieutenant at Keesler Air Force Base. Man, I've seen you grown so much, and I don't know how much, I don't know. You can't really teach an old dog new tricks, but man, you learned some new tricks, sir. I want to talk about the message you put out not too long ago, and it was "Who am I?" And it was after the untimely and unfortunate death of George Floyd. How did you feel when you were writing those words, and also how did you feel after you released that message? Like, was it a weight lifted? Like, how did you feel about that?
I wouldn't say it was a weight lifted. There's this, maybe a sports analogy. You hear about people being in the zone, right? Where you just can't miss. You just, I think some people probably refer to it in life as being in flow, where you just, you're aligned with your purpose. Like, and so that's the way I felt. Like, this is exactly the message that I'm supposed to pen and deliver. And it was I was shocked. I love writing, but it normally takes me a while to craft a message, especially a message like that. But to be honest, I woke up that morning because I had been thinking about it. I had been thinking about the fact that nobody, to include me and my boss, had really spoken on this. So I woke up after thinking about it over the weekend, I woke up on a Monday morning, and within about an hour and a half, it was done. And like most senior leaders, I have a team. I have a public affairs advisor that helps me with all that. And so because I did it so fast, I sent it to him, to two of my teammates, and said, "Hey, I've said exactly what I want to say, how I want to say it. You're allowed to fix grammar and spelling. That's it. Don't change anything else." They came back with, "Well, we think you should." Like, no, I said exactly what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it. So if it's not grammar or spelling, don't touch it. So they got it back to me within, 20 or 30 minutes. I sent it over to my boss just as a courtesy to say, "Hey, sir, I'm releasing this at this time. Just wanted to give you a heads up." And he came right back immediately with like, "Wow, this is powerful." And then he sent it to, a couple of his colleagues, some Black retired general officers. And so by the time it was released, now what the funny part was, we were trying to release it at 4:00, 5:00, something like that. And somebody came in our office and said, "Well, we just got a message from the Joint Staff saying nobody released anything." And I'm like, "Hey, our stuff is already gone, man. So sorry." But I thought it was just really, really important to get that message out. But I kind of felt like, as I was penning it, man, I was in the zone. I was in flow. I was, to some extent living my purpose, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I hate to use the term, rising to the occasion or rising to the moment, but in a sense, that's kind of what it felt like. Was, hey, you've been called to speak on this, to help protect our young Black men and women, not just in the Air Force, but across the nation. And you kind of have a responsibility to speak about this. And so I just felt like I was fulfilling that responsibility.
I'm sure you can agree with this wholeheartedly, right? This is a very, very difficult conversation for anybody to have, but especially for a minority, because just like I do, when you get to certain positions, or for you to even get to certain positions, you can't step outside of lines. You can't step outside of certain boxes. You have to know when to play the game, right? And for a long time, we have been conditioned to play the game and win at any cost, even when it comes to politics, whatever the case may be. The conversations we have in public are totally different from the conversations we have in private amongst each other. And you have given us a voice, man. You really did. Like, I didn't realize how much you had given me a voice until I said those words. You and General Goldfein have given us a voice. And man, it's just like, it hit me out of nowhere. I was not expecting to get all emotional, but man, it was like, I probably wouldn't have said nothing if it wasn't for you.
And I could probably say there's probably some young lieutenants and senior airmen and whatnot who were empowered by your words and the words of, I can't tell you how it made me feel the morning somebody sent me, the piece that you and your guys did, man, folks around it, especially, me recognizing you and a few other folks that were, in that video. But I think we all, man, as leaders have a responsibility to inspire the people, not just the ones that we serve directly, but, all of the folks who are coming up behind us, just like the Honorable John Lewis and so many other folks before him have done for us. And that's a responsibility that we have to take seriously. And you and I, man, we have to get to a point where those conversations that we have in public and in private are closer to the same. We have to get comfortable, and to be frank, we have to get white people comfortable talking about race and injustice and understanding what racism and bias and discrimination is, so that you can have conversations. That's part of the reason that the conversations are different in private and public, is because people are so fearful about offending someone. There's sensitivity on both sides, right? There's, a lot of Black people are very sensitive about race and what it means. And a lot of white people are, sensitive about talking about it and not understanding. So that's why, I've been recommending to people to read a couple of books. One is White Fragility, Robin DiAngelo. Excellent book on how to talk about race. And then the other one, one of my favorite books, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And another great, these are great resources that people can use to not only help them understand what racism is and how to deal with it, but just to get comfortable talking about it.
So I've been talking a lot over the course of the last 2-3 months about this topic. Obviously, it's not easy for anybody to talk about, right? However, what I tell people, whether you're white, Black, whatever, allow me to be the person that says, hey, that's a little bit too far, or allow me to course correct you. And what I want to ask you, Chief, is what advice do you give people about having this conversation?
Of course, it depends on, who I'm talking to, right? So who I'm talking to and what level they reside. But I'll tell you the general advice I've been giving to particularly senior leaders in the Air Force, commanders and group commanders and chiefs and flight chiefs and all that type of stuff is, man, just listen. You don't have to make excuses for what you did. If somebody says to you that something that you're saying or doing, or a policy that we currently have, or a policy that you support is racist or offensive or is discriminatory, just be willing to listen. Don't always get offended by it and start, because that's what people normally do, right? If you accuse me of having a policy that's racist or sexist or something, I'm going to immediately get defensive, and then I'm going to stop listening and start trying to explain to you all the reasons, all the Black people I ever hired, how many Black friends I got, how many women that I've mentored over the years, and so therefore I can't be, so on and so forth. And sometimes and this is just a basic tenet of feedback, period, and you can ask my team, man, when I've really encouraged them to provide me feedback. And I told them from the beginning, I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to say thank you, and then I'm going to try to change whatever behavior you point out to me. And so it seems simple, but it's one of the more challenging skills that I think we all have, is to just listen, absorb. And in many cases, and this is the hard part for leaders, because we're just taught, especially in the military, man, and you're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to know everything. Sometimes there's nothing to say, right? Sometimes, hey, man, just hear me out. And all I might need is a head nod, a handshake, a hug, a hand on the shoulder, an acknowledgement that, hey, man, I'm going to be here for you. We're going to work through this together. I don't need an explanation about why you don't and how you grew up and all this other stuff. And I think that is appropriate sometimes for us to better understand each other. But, my general advice, man, is just listen. And then, educate yourself. So one thing that I don't accept, right, I'll be honest, is, people, leaders, especially in the Air Force today, saying, hey, I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to deal with this. It's like, hey, man, you got to educate yourself, right? It's 2020, man. There's so much information that's available. There's so many people that's available to help you. To me, that's a cop-out, right? Commanders in the Air Force and leaders at all levels, man, we do some incredibly important things in the under the umbrella of defending this nation. And I don't ever hear anybody say, "Well, I don't know how to deal with Russia. I don't know how to deal with China. I just don't." So if it's something that's important to you, man, you'll figure out a way to educate yourself, which also means figuring out a way to weed through, all the chaff and all of the fake news and all this other stuff, and you can figure out, how to educate yourself enough to be able to have a conversation. And much of that education, again, is just, hey, Russ, man, tell me about you. Tell me about your background, how you grew up. How do you see this issue? How does it feel being the only, Black aviator or whatever in this organization?
The one thing I got to tell you is you showed us how to be a senior leader and also be extremely human, be extremely approachable, be extremely credible. And for that, man, I thank you. What's next for Chief Wright?
You probably heard, man, I'm moving on here in October to be the CEO of Air Force Aid Society. So I'll stay a little bit connected to the Air Force. And for people who don't know, that's the Air Force charity that provides emergency assistance, scholarships, and then some community programs and support to airmen and their families when they're going through hard times. I'll be staying here in D.C., office in Crystal City. Got a small team of about 20 people, but huge impact, around $20 million or so a year in support that we provide. And then I got my own coaching business that I'm developing. So I'll be doing some leadership coaching, where I can. I've done some work with Harvard in the last couple of years. So I think I may be a fellow in one of their executive leadership programs, and then maybe a little bit of board work, some corporate boards. And I think that'll be enough to keep me busy for the next 7 or 8 years before I shut it down, all together. And I'll be playing a lot of golf, man, drinking a lot of scotch and smoking a lot of cigars,
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Chief. You got to balance it. You got to balance it all out.
I tell you what, though, Russ, one other thing that I really want to carve out some time to do is because of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Michael Brown and Philando Castile and all that type of stuff. I recently just rewatched Just Mercy. So I really want to find a way to be able to contribute to like the Equal Justice Initiative, man. I recognize that there's so many people, certainly so many Black people that have been wrongly accused or convicted, and to be able to dedicate some time to helping people and maybe even helping out the families. Because I imagine that if you were, incarcerated, how tough it might be on your wife or your kids, financially, mentally and whatnot. And so I want to find a way to wedge myself into that world and be able to help out. I mean, I applaud Maya Moore, man, who's a WNBA player who decided to forego basketball to get involved, and she successfully helped a young man get out of prison just recently.
Chief, you're going to have a lot of stuff going on, but I know you're used to it. So
yeah.
I got 2 more questions for you, man. I'm going to let you roll out. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. How do you balance all this stuff with the family, the organizations, and the Air Force? That's plenty by itself. How do you balance it all, keep the wife happy, keep the family happy?
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't do a very good job, just to be perfectly honest. However, I think what really helps me is having a wife that's my wife served as well, so she understands not just the military and all the responsibilities that I have, but she understands, that I love being a Q, that I love giving back, and some of the stuff in terms of whether it's volunteer work or in our social circles we can do together. But I think it's important, man, to have some type of system, system where you maintain, organization and you prioritize the things that are important to you. So a good example is there was a time before I got this job when, I can't never say that I was the outest bruh, right? But there was a time when if the bros were getting together, if there was an event, if there was a meeting, if there was a hangout, boom, I'm there. Rue Dog, I'll meet you there, and so on and so forth. I recognize in this job that I just don't have the time amongst all the other things that I got to do. So I limit it to, I still have lunch with the bros. I go to frat meetings when I can, and of course I still maintain my ties and kick it with as many brothers as I can whenever I come across them. I play golf with the bros on the weekends and stuff, but I just don't have the time to be like I would never. Whenever I'm in a chapter, I always want to take on a position and work, whether it's an official position or on a scholarship committee or something. And I just recognize that right now, at this phase in my life, I don't have the time. But in 2 weeks, when I'm retired, hey man, I'm back, right? I'll be able to contribute much more. So I think you also have to just recognize, man, that life is in phases. And you're a young guy, you're coming up, man. There'll be times when you'll have all the time in the world for entertainment or education or whatever it is that you do. At some point, you'll get married and start having kids, and your priorities will change and whatnot, right?
Oh, you late. I'm married with 2 babies.
No, you blessed. That's what it is, right? You blessed.
Yeah,
That's
for
correct.
sure.
So I've tried a couple of different systems, man. I'm always on the internet. I'm always reading books about high performance habits and I try all of these different little books and journals and stuff to try to keep my life organized, man. But and so you just have to keep at it, and you find a system that works for you, that allows you to prioritize the things that are important, and go from there.
The one question I want to ask you, Chief, is if there's a brand new airman or a kid that just needs to be motivated, inspired, or led in the right direction, what advice do you have for them?
My advice for somebody that needs to be brand new airman, brand new lieutenant, person, starting a journey in any phase of life is, first and foremost, find some clarity in what it is that you want to be. What is it that you want out of life? If you just joined the military, do you want to have a career? Do you want to just do 4 years? Or if you're undecided, that's fine too. But the closer you can get to deciding, hey, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, the easier it is for mentors like you and myself to help them out. And so my advice would be, one, spend some time thinking about what it is that you want out of life. And then 2, find a good mentor, right? Read The Alchemist, man. I recommend this book to so many people. It's a fable. It's a story about exactly what you just asked me, a young man who's on a journey trying to discover. The author, Paulo Coelho, he calls it his trying to discover his personal legend, loosely translates to his purpose in life. He meets a mentor along the way, an older gentleman, and he says to him, hey, all you have to do is decide what you want to be in life, and the entire universe conspires to help you achieve it. And so that just means, man, once you decide who you want to be, what you want to be, you start meeting the right people, you start getting the right opportunities, you start making the right mistakes, if I can coin that as a phrase, because those are important, right? The lumps and bumps upside your head is something that we all need to grow. But I would say find somebody, man, that inspires you. They don't have to look like you. They don't have to be in the military. They don't have to be, and they certainly don't have to be in your unit. There are lots of willing mentors, man, that are outside the cockpit, that are outside the fences of the maintenance complexes, that are outside the walls of the MPF or wherever it is. All you got to do is find them, and then it's simple. Like most of us don't expect somebody to come up, even though it's happened to me a couple of times. Hey, you're gonna be my mentor, and I've assigned you as my mentor. Okay, got it. I'm down. But most times, man, people say, hey, Chief, you got a minute? Can we grab a coffee? I just got a couple of questions. And then from there, it turns into a second coffee. There's an email, there's a book recommendation, there's a question here or there. And then next thing you know, there's this mentoring relationship. And so I would just tell young people, man, there's a lot of us who have made the mistakes already. and we have some great advice and guidance that we can provide. So just find somebody that you aspire to be like, or that inspires you, and reach out to them. And I would say 95% of us, man, will be willing to say, okay, yep, I got you.
Chief, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, man, for taking time out of your morning just to sit down with me and have this conversation. I'm proud of you, dude. I'm super proud of you, man. I'm glad I got to serve underneath your leadership, underneath General Goldfein's leadership. And you all truly will be missed for sure. But thank you, Chief. Real talk.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for, like I said, the great work that you've been doing, making sure that we all have a voice and that people can hear our voice. Thank you for tackling the tough subjects, especially at this point, in your career. So, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of your colleagues. I appreciate all of the mutual friends that we have, and all the great things that you guys are doing. Like I said, help me with this, man. I think during my discussion with General Goldfein, I think I said MAFO, right? And then I saw some traffic on the page. It was like, they're like, what is he talking about? It's MAFO, right? Is it MAFO, MAFO? What's the proper?
So, Chief, this is literally the biggest argument that we have today. Man, this is the biggest argument we have today. But it is MAFO. It is absolutely MAFO. Okay. But I know when people see this, they're going to call me and curse at me talking about it's MAFO. But it's MAFO. It's absolutely MAFO.
Okay, got it. So yeah, man, I've been invited to the page. I've been on the page for a couple of years actually, and I reserve my comments, but I'm always watching, man, and paying attention. And like I said, we have a lot of mutual friends. I know quite a few of the folks that are members, and it's excellence, man. What it is Black, and it's Hispanic, and it's Asian, it's minority excellence, and I love it. The one thing that I can say about that page, and kudos to Colonel Rue and whoever else kind of sets the tone. He seems to set the tone quite a bit on there. Is that I don't never see no mess, man. I don't never see no mess. It's all love, even when the topics get difficult. I just have such a sense of pride in being able to watch what you guys do, man. So yeah, thanks, Russ, man. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for keeping me accountable. We all need that in life. And thanks for doing what you do, man. All love, baby.
All right, everybody. You just heard it from the absolute best, the man, the myth, the legend, number 18, the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant Kaleth Wright. We'll see you all next week.